The unitary system has already empowered local political clans and dynasties. Historically, a total of 319 political clans have controlled local and national politics. Of this number, 234 or 73% continued to dominate the recently held 2019 midterm elections. Furthermore, 220 or 70% have held local positions for at least 2 decades. There is a cycle of emergence, maintenance, decline, and replacement of political dynasties. Of the total 319 political families, 111 or 35% are considered durable or have been active since the colonial and post-war period. For example, the Ortega clan, which have dominated the politics of La Union for 100 years. 124 or 39% of dominant political families have emerged in the last 4 decades. For example, the most dominant political clan right now is that of President Duterte. 50 or 16% are dormant political families that used to be dominant but suffered some electoral or political setbacks, but still possess the machinery to make a comeback. For example, for the first time since 1987, there is no sitting member of the Aquino family in national or local government. On the other hand, the formerly dormant Marcos dynasty after EDSA has now regained its dominance in local and national politics. 34 or 10% are defunct or have completely disappeared from the political arena. For example, there have been no elected member of the Laurel clan since 2001. The next generation have decided to pursue other professions. So based on these figures, one can observe that despite being one of the oldest democracies in Asia, the kind of democracy we have is an elite democracy. While members of political families are elected, they benefit from the incumbency advantage which allowed them to maintain their political machineries. And lastly, political dynasties are dominant with or without term limits. From a comparative perspective, Daniel Smith observed Japan, along with Ireland and Iceland, in the company of economically developing and younger democracies like Taiwan, the Philippines, and Thailand, exhibit a dangerously high percentage of dynastic share in the legislature beyond 20%. Greece, Belgium, and India occupy what might be considered the middle stratum of dynastic politics, with between 10% and 15% of members in recent years coming from political dynasties. In most other democracies, legacy legislators tend to account for between 5% and 10% of the legislature. This level of dynastic politics might thus be considered a normal level for healthy democracies. Among the democracies for which the comparative data are available, Germany appears to be the least prone to dynastic politics, with less than 2% of members of the German Bundestag in recent years counting as legacy legislators. Corruption is among the major obstacles to the institutionalization of the rule of law in the Philippines. According to World Bank estimates, at least 20% of the annual budget is lost to corruption. This figure is equivalent to 3.8% of the country's gross national product. From 1995 to 2000, the total amount lost to corruption is estimated at 609 billion pesos. The Philippines has not improved its score in the annual Corruption Perception Index survey of the Transparency International. Duterte's electoral victory is a major rupture in the post-Marcos EDSA regime founded by Corazon Cory C. Aquino in 1986. It came in the aftermath of 6 years of high growth and political stability under the administration of her son, President Benigno Noynoy Aquino. Duterte's phenomenal victory can be understood within the context of what the second Aquino administration has failed to do. Despite his personal popularity due to his clean image and lack of personal political scandals, Aquino failed to institutionalize the reform agenda of Daang Matuwid. One can also argue that this was emblematic of Philippine governance under the so-called EDSA regime. A number of scholars have explained how the narrative of the 1986 People Power Uprising at EDSA has been appropriated by the Aquinos, the Catholic Church, and their so-called yellow elite supporters into a semi-religious national myth of good defeating evil and bringing back righteous democracy to the land. The rise of Duterte exposes the inherent weakness of a democracy that is impervious to the demands of the public. Philippine democracy has been rendered inutile by a strong-willed populist president acting on the people's frustration by any means possible.